Good rap shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays, where we learn to try a little bit harder. I am the Gorgon Wazoo, and we're sitting here at Royal Gaming Cafe in Seattle, Washington, at the International. Cheer, everybody! Woo! And it's great to have everybody here. We have a full room of fantastic people, and this show is definitely going to be a show that's more about you guys, because the only reason we're here is because of the people in this room, and this is what these are supposed to be. So if you have anything to say at any point, just step up and yell it, rep it. I can see Proud thinking about it right now. So please step up, say anything you want to. This is going to be a communal thing, a town hall thing. But joining me, of course, is my co-host, Grandmaster Flubb.
All right, thank you. As always, Grand Wazoo.
And you thought recording with headphones in a secluded environment was difficult.
Yeah, this is much different. And,
yeah. You can see the beady eyes.
Oh yeah, it's a little intimidating, but they're all friends, so it's
they're
all
here
good.
just for you.
Yeah.
And we're also sitting here with someone that I'm glad that we got the chance to record with, Gorgon the Wonder Cow. It's great to have you.
Hey, it's good to be here and cut you off. Already, we're off to a good start.
Oh, no, I'm glad.
The professionalism
someone
is real.
Put me out of my misery. We've been driving a while, and I know a bunch of other people made the trip, so it's interesting to see everyone here and conscious and making the effort. Let's start with that. What was everyone's trip like to get here? I know people have come from far and wide to enjoy the Dota. Let's start with you, Gorgon.
Well, I hail from the tiny city of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and so I flew out of DTW on Friday and landed and left my notebook with all of my interview prep for the entire event on the plane. So the next day, I went out and did 8 or 9 hours of professional Dota 2 player interviews without any of my prep. So that was awesome.
What do you have coming out this week, or anything that you've released recently that?
Yeah, everything that I'm doing here at the International can be found on the Score Esports app or website, and I've got interviews with Dendy and Jirax and Fly and Resolution and Demon and pretty much members of every team competing here out there, as well as several features and narrative articles. So I am pumping out a lot while I'm here, and you guys can find that all over at the Score Esports.
Yeah, you do some really accessible, and we were talking about this before, player profiles, and it's really great primer for a tournament like this, because you can get that accessible material before you jump into all these teams, and some are eliminated, which we're going to get into, but definitely check out Gorgon on the Score. We will kind of catch up with you and your thoughts about the tournament in a little bit. I want to hear about Flubb's journey from Erie, Indiana. What was that like? First plane ride.
First plane ride.
Yeah.
I haven't really been to very many states either, so this is kind of a big deal for me. But the plane ride was all good. It was actually really funny. I'm the only person ever in United for it to not have a delay or whatever for today, because Grouty's not even here still. He's back a day still, and Ursi had delays, but miraculously I had 2 flights and nothing went wrong. I actually got here early, so
yeah, you're a rock. When you got off, I could just tell it was you. I was that guy's a 5 support, because you glowed this type of glow that was I could die in his arms and be all right tonight, I could die tonight in his arms.
That could have been just the no sleep.
It's a lot weirder to make jokes like that with a room full of people looking at you what the fuck? But so the flight was pretty comfortable. You couldn't get the movies to work.
Yeah, I couldn't get anything to work. I could the trip was just me kind of smacking my head against the wall. I feel that wasn't that, but I basically just sat there and actually used Audible for the first time. I'd never used that, but man, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What were you reading on the plane?
The Gunslinger. I don't know if anyone's ever read that, but
people think Roland's named after that Roland from the Gunslinger, but yeah.
He's not named after that? I swore he was named after that.
He's named after a speaker or something somewhere.
Oh.
A keyboard.
The thing that plays music.
All of it's black and white keys. It's all asynchronous. That's the keyboard Roland's named after.
You went for a keyboard instead of super awesome outlaw
played by
Gunslinger.
Idris Elba.
We don't have cool names. Like our names don't come from cool places.
Mine does. It's the Grand Wazoo.
The Grand
which the
Wazoo?
Wazoo means ass. So.
Yeah.
The Wonder Cow, Gorgon the Wonder Cow.
Yeah,
Gorgon's a giant.
That's not on
beast.
my birth certificate. I will ruin the illusion here
but-
tonight.
And how do we know you are who you say you are?
You don't. You just have to believe me. Either I'm who I say I am, or I killed him and took his skin. Either way, you should be worried
Either
about
way,
questioning me.
You
Yeah.
really want to be here right now, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But Flub, I'm glad everybody made it. Everybody out there, I'm glad you guys made it safe. I mean, that's all we want to do is have a safe TI. So let's talk about the tournament so far. I've been playing Crazy Taxi, I like to call it. Does anyone remember that game, Crazy Taxi?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Simpsons did a version. What was it called?
Bad.
I'm pretty sure it was just Crazy Taxi. It was just like
Simpsons Crazy?
Simpsons Crazy Taxi
Yeah,
or
something like that.
Yeah.
Man.
I remember playing it, and it was like, yeah, I mean, it's classic Simpsons, so it was like also really dumb, and like you could hit like the Bumblebee guy, and he'd like freak out, and
No gore or anything. It was just like, ay caramba.
yeah,
That's the consequences for like a brutal car wreck.
yeah.
But yeah, Seattle has not been nice to me in terms of like my sanity. As my sanity dwindles, it's like I don't know about driving in the city. Like I was like fine, and it's like get behind the wheel of a car, and it's like Jesus, put a bullet in my head. But
His driving ability is amazing. His driving ability is fine. His navigating ability, gosh.
it's like some people are 1 carries and some people are 5 supports. It's like one of those things.
And some people play LOL, and that's about where you are navigating.
And some people like sink from 3,500 MMR to like 2,200 in like 4 months and blame the world. It's not my fault, man. It's not my fault. But let's talk about a TI experience. Gorgon, I kind of want to start with you because you've been, you're down here doing all the work on the players and profiles. So
Yep.
what do you think of the tournament? You've been here, you said like
I've been here since Friday. Yeah. So
what do you think?
This is, for my money, the most compelling international I think that there's ever been. You can make an argument for TI3 being maybe up there as well. There was a lot of strong narratives and a lot of strong teams in TI3, but in the end, everybody was pretty sure that it would be either Na'Vi or Alliance that won that one. This year, it's really, with the right polls on the group stage, with the right bracket build, any team could win this one that's still in the tournament. And even some teams that were eliminated already could have had a shot at winning this legitimately.
And we are going to discuss eliminations and stuff, so if you don't want to hear that, buy some rice cakes up there and just shove them in your ears. That should work. Get something to hold them there.
But I also wanted to touch on something real quick. The kind of cool thing about this TI, more than any other TI, okay, in older TIs we had Pudge hooks that were insane, and like basically won the tournament off of this weird glitch. We had in TI and other TIs where like Shadow Demon Lesh was just dominating the scene and having this like impact of like being super aggressive. This TI, I feel like there's like definite plays and safe responsibility. Like, I mean, it sounds really dumb when you put it that way, but it's impressive to actually watch a team do something so coordinated, but like safe and calculating at the same time. It's almost like they're not even like talking to each other about this. It's almost like already understood how every calculated risk goes into the game.
It's in the reflexes. It's in your neurons or something, and it's firing off for everybody to see in that moment. And
generally that's what Dota's about, right? That's why we all love it. But the thing is like this is gone above, way and beyond. It's just it brings into this new element that like I haven't seen in a TI in a long time, and I've been watching them this whole ever since the first one came out. I actually just talked about it today, how much I like stayed up for 40 hours straight on the first one because it was just 100% games. They didn't have like any actual like timing to it. There was no we're gonna like hold these games off for a little while. It's like
probably way off schedule too, and we've come so far in that in that respect. I mean,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
always on time now.
Oh yeah.
Bump, 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 bump. Yeah.
Hey, we'll add a cool garage band loop in there later on. Or something, I don't know.
And that's just like what you were talking about there. Kind of like reminded me of that, Gorgon. Is that like, and even though this TI has a lot of different heroes in it, and people were always saying that this is going to be the best TI because it's going to have the more combinations, the more availability. It's also like the best TI because I've never seen teams work so in unison before. And I just can't wait until like these games actually start kicking off.
You have upsets too, and I think you have some payoffs here that are interesting. I mean, you see OG go down to MVP, and I remember seeing a meme a while ago. Hey Jay Gucci, our meme master, there in the audience. Just seeing your face keeps me going.
Jay Goose.
Very important member of our community. I saw this meme where it was like TI1, whoever won it, TI2, whoever won it, TI3, whoever won it, TI4, 5, 6, then at 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all Korean. It's like we welcome our Korean overlords because of that skill. You know, they just hit those hours and it's done. Like they've blown everyone else out of the water. And I don't know if you'd say that with MVP because Dota's a little bit different of a game, but to see OG kind of go down to a PA drafted out of 2 of their 3 games was an interesting upset in terms of that coordination point you're making.
Yeah.
Because this is previously a team that just kind of wows you in terms of how they function as like a single like body. You know what I mean? It's like none of them are autonomous and yet they are. So I think that's very interesting. And this passion that's kind of been building with the majors, I think really assists that. It helps put those storylines out there in a way that makes it compelling to its audiences. And of course, talent like this Gorgon helps bring that out to the forefront as well. And, you know, that's what we try to do is just get that out there. But
I was just going to add on to the MVP Phoenix thing where, like, what MVP Phoenix do, wow, that they do better than anybody else in the world is they convince their opponents that fighting is the right decision when it is never the right decision, right? They had a 5 melee lineup or a 4 melee lineup today with a void, all mid-game attack heroes, and somehow they convinced OG to consistently go into fights. They consistently go into 5-on-5 fights where they just had no business being. And it really comes down to their positioning and their coordination. It comes back to what you were saying a little bit, Wazoo. You know, right now, the top 100, even arguably the top probably 250 players in the world, the skill gap between those guys so razor thin that when a team is doing well, it comes down to either a better understanding of some aspect of the game conceptually, and that's great captaining and great coaching, or better communication in the team, and that's the really fast reactions that you were talking about, Flubb. That comes from the communication, and I've been talking to a lot of players. A lot of teams now are having coaches in ways that we have not seen coaches utilize to this degree ever before.
Are
in
you
Dota.
seeing that with like people like Owie and stuff like that coaching for these other teams?
Yeah, so you got Owie, you have Theban. Escape has a coach in Notahax. Digital Chaos has 2 coaches. One coach who is specifically helping them keep their morale up and working on theory crafting, and another coach who really just works on communication patterns. Like the teams are utilizing a lot, and teams are also hiring data analysts in droves to some degree. Fnatic has one of my old JD cohorts, Kipsel. We got started in esports around the same time. Kips is now doing data analysis for them and like literally just drilling out and teaching them what their opponent's patterns are. These are 2 roles in teams that are really going to help separate the best teams of this year and the best teams of every year to come, probably from now on.
Well, I think what's really cool about that is that coaching is like such a new concept in Dota that you bring up, and like I don't think we've seen the best coach like at all. I don't even think there's even like anyone there may be good coaches, quote unquote, but most of these people are players that are generally thought of okay or pretty decent. There's nothing that like I would say that the people that have been coaching that they're just like 100% better in certain scenarios. And even they've like those players do like some things that I'll generally some of the other pro players will be like, well, why did you do that? That's kind of silly way of thinking about something. And I kind of feel like as time moves on, there may be like people who that are still playing right now that are at like their older cusp of starting to come down. Maybe like Fear, or maybe like you know, there's plenty of people out there that like you could see like retiring in a couple years, and then like having way more Dota knowledge than anyone else out there.
Mikasa is the example of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and there's just like there's so much available in this position, and esports is a sport, and in my opinion, it always will be, because there's so much intertwined with itself that it actually is exactly like a sport. Like I remember like thinking over like what old coaches said to me, and when I like look at my team as a captain, I try to do that. And as a captain, you shouldn't necessarily be taking that role. I feel like there should be a coach in that position, because they should have that authority, but not be in the game having that authority.
There's that buffer zone where you can step out and be like, look, objectively, that was bad.
Yep.
And you're not going to get all heated on me because I'm analyzing this afterwards, and this is why it's bad. I think coaching, what I see anyway, as a player of dubious skill, is like coaching kind of just seeing as like a direct, something the knowledge just goes directly into. Like you're all of a sudden like a fantastic coach just because. And I don't know if that works out exactly that way. I can't like list any direct examples. I mean, like you could always throw the whole like the results from the tournament and stuff, but that feels a little dirty because you can't say someone's a bad coach because of that, something like that. But like you said, it's something that's new and developing, and it's something that not all teams employ. But pretty soon, you're going to be pretty foolish not to employ some coaches if you can.
I mean, next year a team that doesn't have a coach is a team that loses, almost guaranteed.
A huge disadvantage. So it's interesting to see these players that can't really be appreciated on that level.
Coaching also
being picked up as coaches, and they have a bit more success there. Maybe.
In Dota too, coaching is way, way, way more than understanding the game. It is far more understanding your players and getting their understandings of the game to coordinate together, getting them to communicate well. So I talked to Nahas, who was coaching Complexity in the lead up to this event earlier today. I've got an interview that'll come out later on this week with him. And one of the big points that he hit on over and over again, not only in this interview but in my conversations I've been kind of hanging out with him throughout the weekend, is that he learned so much coaching that he didn't know about the way humans communicate and the way team synergy kind of happens. It's something that even if you are a professional player, even if you are a master of economics or any of these other sort of human developing or human studying areas of expertise, there is something about the high communication standards in Dota that make it a learning process, I think, for anybody to jump up and step into that role. And I think the best coaches are going to be the ones like Lumdum from Digital Chaos, who really help turn around the team's ability to talk to each other, and increasingly as players of different nationalities and different native tongues are trying to communicate with each other in game. Like, that is just absolutely vital.
I've almost always wanted to do an episode based upon like the differences in different languages communications, in terms of like the breakdown of who tells who what and how you respond to that and how it's different per the language. I don't know, I've read interesting things about, like, for instance, in the 90s, Korean Airlines had a terrible time landing planes because they'd be like, we need to land this fucking plane, but in their language they would be kind of showing that they were below the person who was in the air traffic control. So they'd literally be running out of fuel, circling these air traffic control towers and just going down because they didn't quite have a way to say, listen, motherfucker, I'm going down. Like, right now I need to land somewhere. Like, they didn't realize that was that same level of intensity. And so I wonder if there's this different challenges per the language. I mean, it'd be interesting to know. I know we have some people in the community who speak different languages, but that's something that's always kind of fascinated me, like if there's different hurdles depending on the language, because I know just with English there's plenty of them. So
there's definitely, like, I mean, there's the cultural barriers that you're talking about that any team experience, and it's and that's why generally, you know, you'll have teams that are focused on that cultural experience together, because they kind of form a stronger bond because they have like the same ideology and the same go through. But like,
it can be a strength, right?
Yeah,
it can be a huge strength.
Yeah, and like the thing is that's not always the teams that I feel like that are 100% are the best. I feel like, you know, as time moves on, there's definitely positions that are opening up, and like there's different opportunities within a team now that are not just the players. The players are just like a kind of, they are the main focus. But if you have like if you have someone who's able to like basically talk about psychology, like basically talk about the inner workings of like the other players, it's really funny how something that like seems so mundane can matter so much when you get into the game and get into a situation like you're saying, that miscommunication of just not being able to have just a way to say something, or
sometimes it's just not firing off, right? Even if you are saying what you think is something, it might not be right, and so to have an objective someone look in. It's someone on the show recently talking about psychology and stuff, and having someone to talk to the players and stuff, or just like kind of look at their different communication patterns or how they express frustration, and to like have an environment in which you're not wrong for expressing the frustration this way, but there's obviously a line. I can't remember for the life of me who, like, it's late, guys. Like, bear with me, and you can go listen to every single .p episode. It's one of them. But it's really got me thinking, like, all these different like support staff positions with the coach, and it's starting to look, as much as it isn't real life sports, it's starting to look kind of like it, with like an offensive coach, a defensive coach. You have someone else handling that other stuff. And what do you think of that growth?
I think that the comparison to sports is apt, but I would go farther. I think that communication in esports is more important than in sports, because whereas in sports you communicate about what you're going to do, and then you have to read your teammates while you're on the field. There's not a lot of ability to actually communicate directly. The communication in an esport is hidden from your opponents constantly, so you can say whatever you want without worrying about giving something away. And you're in constant communication all the time. And so basically, and so are your opponents. Basically, that means that any team that communicates even with like a 3% greater efficacy, right, is going to be 3% ahead of their opponents constantly. It's not like if you're playing American football and a team that has a 3% edge on communication is going to be slightly better at discussing what play they're going to put up next, but then the on-field body communication will be a completely different skill set. In Dota, you are always in touch with your allies, and so are your opponents.
And you don't necessarily call a play and then go through with it. If it's going to shit, like, you need to obviously figure something else out.
Right, you need to adapt in real time.
This helps us segue, I think, Flubb, unless you have something else to add.
No, it's good.
I just kind of wanted to talk about the eliminations today. I can't help but talk about Secret. I mean, I didn't feel like people thought, like, they were kind of waiting to see the payoff, right? Like, we have EG that they're building with a new squad, and I don't know, I kind of used those two teams as a barometer because they switched up so much, and like just kind of measuring them against each other. And just in terms of results, I mean, EG is just obviously still in the tournament, so that's pretty huge. But at the same time, it just feels like something in terms of Secret's communication was not quite there. It wasn't a unit together, they were just kind of moving in different directions. And I attribute a lot of that to the very high farm roles of Arteezy and Envy on the same team. And I don't know about Puppy's drafts sometimes, but I don't know. What do you guys think? What team shocked you? What do you think of Secret?
Personally, I kind of saw Secret petering out. I kind of felt like they haven't really been doing anything that's like, yeah, they'll have a good game every once in a while, but I feel like in if you look at the team as a whole, there's a lot of times where they make mistakes that are there's no real nice way to say it. It's kind of just silly mistakes, and they're miscalculations, major miscalculations on certain like positioning errors, and that comes down to what you're talking about with communication. But it's also like when you play a certain style, especially on a team, you want to like, there's certain captains that are more aggressive and some that are like more defensive.
Where would you put Puppy?
Definitely defensive.
Yeah. With his chins and all that stuff.
Well, like he gets, but the thing is like he'll like push, but he'll defensively push, and he'll make these plays that are like, I don't really feel like he's he's like trying to let people. I think actually Ursi was the one who was talking about it to me earlier.
Shout out to Ursi, everybody.
Shout out to Ursi. We were talking about the idea of how he gives people like a little bit of room, and then he gives like the enemy a little bit of room, and then giving them that little bit of room, he tries to get more out of it, like with some type of heavy farmer. I believe Ursi was talking about it, and he said that, you know, there's so many good people, there's so much talent out there right now that if you give someone that little bit of farm, they're gonna like use that as a catalyst to like help their team out.
It's just their launching pad into a game.
And no hero is bad right now too. Like there are heroes that are questionable.
When you pick Terrorblade and Alchemist and you're like best of one, and it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
So
let me draft for you, puppy.
But if you get
2K MMRs, they won't expect it coming.
Like look at Mirana, for instance. Mirana is like, remember what she used to be? She used to be that person that like, if she supported, she was getting nothing. There was no way she was getting anywhere in that game. Like, I played Mirana all the time, and even if you got like good kills and you got good farm, like you still weren't killing things. Now with the availability with Arrow for farming and getting that Ag Scepter up, like she can burst out of nowhere. Then there's a lot of heroes that can do that. It's not just Mirana, and that's what's so popular in the scene right now. Is like, okay, you gave this guy, this support, some extra farm. Okay, we're just gonna transition her to a carry or a primary ganker in the situation, and then move on with the game from there. It's not necessarily a bad strategy anymore.
Is that melee ability like indicative of the meta though? Is it like we need to pick a hero that can like semi-scale but can also like, because you see Mirana ran in different ways, right? She can like now effectively push. I see this thing where she like will blink in, take out a wave, and then just jump out or something. You know what I mean? It's interesting. You can actually like push waves with her.
I feel like any Dota, any guy who follows Dota, at any point in any patch, availability and being able to put a character in any position is always something that's sought out for. Because the game is a mind game. That's what it comes down to, and that's what it always will be. Is that you need to outthink the other player, and you need to out position them and give them an idea. If they're doing A, then you're going to be doing B, and then just so on and so forth. And like, I've had a lot of talks with Gorgon in the past because I've known him, and whenever I've done ideas, I've always went on feelings. It's always a little bit iffy if you go on feelings, but. And Gorgon always goes on stats, but I feel like one thing that we always agreed on was that like if you have a hero that can go anywhere on the map, then that hero is going to win more times than not, because there's no way, unpredictability is death.
Yeah. So I want to go back to what you were saying about Secret and their offensive versus defensive. I would change the phrasing on that a little bit for a proactive versus a reactive team. I think that Secret are greedy, as Wazoo was saying, right? Not only is Puppy one of the greediest, if not the greediest support players in the world, in terms of he does jungling far more often than anybody else in the world in professional games. But he also he consumes a much larger portion of his team's overall resource allocation than most supports in his role. But Secret are a team that like to punish opponents for being overly aggressive, for getting ahead of the cart, and this is not a meta where you can do that. So I think the current Secret roster is actually really good, and they have done a lot of good play. But as you were mentioning, Flub, RTZ and Envy do not seem on the same page often. One or both of them will be out farming alone far too frequently for how long they've been playing on a team together. On top of that, I think that the aggressiveness of this patch, like if I had to describe this patch in professional Dota in two concepts, the first concept is you have to make every decision as 5 players, whether or not it's the right decision. And the second concept would be you have to do everything now that you can do now and save nothing for later that you could get done sooner. If you do those two things, and you're Wings Gaming, then you're OG, then you're Liquid, you're doing well. Newbie is the only team that I can think of that plays regularly for the mid to late game that does really well with it. And Secret likes to play for the late game. They like to play reactionary. It's just not the patch for 'em. Maybe 689 will treat them better if they stay together, which is kind of iffy right now.
You see them and Navi in a similar situation, and I felt like there was an interesting thing that happened when Puppy differentiated himself from Navi. It was like he's found his way out of a team that maybe couldn't hold what he wanted it to. He got his own team. He was ready to take it into his hands. And I don't know if any of those like business decisions have affected them, like getting off Twitch and stuff like that with some of their players, but we're just not seeing the same team out there. And I don't want to focus on them too much because they weren't someone I was super looking forward to seeing, just because their performance has been pretty lackluster leading up to. But they might very well be a good kind of telltale for switching up your team too much.
Oh, I think they are. I think they are the warning story, right? The cautionary tale of changing your team, changing your roster. And most of the professional players that I've been talking to, especially coaches that are professional players turned coaches, have said that stability is going to be much bigger now, much more important, especially with Liquid and OG doing as well as they are. Wings as well are the most stable roster in China. They're also doing very, very well. If you have something that's kind of working, I think we're going to see more often teams try to consider bringing in new ideas and new concepts by bringing in new coaches rather than bringing new players first. Nada Hacks, who is the coach for Escape, granted they didn't do so well, but he has brought them up. They've been together for 2 months and they reached TI, which despite the fact that they had a kind of lackluster showing here, shows a really, really fast acceleration for the team. And he said he doesn't think that any team should ever get together and play for really fewer than 6 months. If you don't give it 6 months, there's no reason to put the team together in the first place.
It's just interesting because you kind of thought of having the perfect Dota team as, like this whole player card thing that you're doing. You just get the best team and it's good. You're good to go, right? You're just the best.
The secret approach.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just obviously doesn't work, and there's kind of some disillusionment towards that. And I don't blame EG, even though they've kind of been in a similar situation, because they've been more reactive towards that type of behavior in a lot of ways.
Except after last TI where they dropped out. They were the first cautionary tale, and I think that they have suffered for that. Yeah. Well, that now ever since then, I mean, you can kind of in a way trace Secret's decisions to their decision to drop Owie all the way back. So they have just been kind of reeling from the aftershocks of that decision ever since, in my opinion. And I disagree with some people about that.
If, they're a team that's been together for 2 months, as you say, and they've had a year since TI, there's something that was lost in translation. There's something that didn't work. Why wasn't that time used more effectively? And, I don't know. It's just interesting questions for that team is all I had when they were knocked out so quickly, because I was hoping to see them. But, I want to represent North America here. Whoop, whoop. Because, DC and EG, they're doing well, man.
Yeah.
Could be another North American thing. And I remember sitting in the audience with Nameless Noob and a few other people. You were there. And when that whatever they call it, the $16 million Echo Slam or whatever went off.
Yeah.
Everyone just lost it. And that electricity is like what keeps us coming back, right, to events like this. So I don't know. What do you guys see for North America right now? Like, what do you think's super strong? And I guess after that, towards the tail end of the conversation, we can kind of talk about who you see otherwise going further in the tournament.
So for North America's representation, I think EG are doing much better than I expected them to. They've changed up their play style. They are very consistent in their drafts and in their execution. And they're not doing anything particularly fancy most of the time. They're not doing anything that really is unlike their previous incarnation, which was like led by the genius of PPD and the singular execution. They're in a large way kind of keeping it more simple. And that is working for them as they scale back up. And I think we'll start to see more of the tricksy stuff as they get to higher brackets. But for me, if I have to choose an American narrative or a North American narrative for the tournament, I say watch Demon, even though he's playing for Southeast Asia. I think he has the most compelling story. It's his 4th the International. He's playing from the lower bracket. He's moved to Southeast Asia and tried to adapt to the culture just to be a competitor. He's a guy who's been in Dota forever and has been playing at or adjacent to the upper levels of Dota for a really long time, but because of his play style, his in-game brashness, his decision-making for high-risk, low-reward plays, he's never really sunk into the wider culture as that player to watch.
He's always been a name,
yeah.
right?
He's a guy that you know,
yeah.
But he's not a guy that, if you were ever asked to make a top 10 list of players, Demon would never have been on that list, right? And I just think he has the best, most compelling story. I think Digital Chaos' story is really good too, but Demon is just, he's a really compelling figure this year, I think.
I think in Dota 2, yeah, I think Demon is definitely one that I would never put a top 10 on.
Yeah.
In Dota 1, he was definitely one of the top 10s.
Yeah.
And it could be like he had a really long time on transitioning. It could be that he couldn't find the right team.
I can tell you exactly what it is right now. There's no question about it. It's that in Dota 1, nobody knew how to play the game. Top players didn't know how to play the game, right? You're the best player because you have the best individual skill in Dota 1. People were still figuring out the game. In Dota 1, we didn't have tri-lanes figured out. We didn't have stacking and polling figured out. Roshan wasn't even added to the game for a good chunk of Dota 1, right? Like, the game that we play now is so distinct from that game. It's archaic, and he is a highly skilled technical individual player, and he's really good at making high risk plays, and that is why, I mean, that's why Dendi was huge in Dota 1. It's why Demon was huge in Dota 1. It's why Havos was huge. The ability to be very aggressive was what made you an all-star then, and that's not what makes you an all-star now, with the exception of like Miracle and Wii.
The classic pub stomper, right? It's
Right.
not quite what it was.
Yeah.
And that's true. But the thing is like, that if you're talking about really old Dota, original Dota, but like it was out for a few years, and like, I mean, Roshan was still pretty big, and it's gotten certain buffs over time, and certain things have changed from it. But like there was, I mean, we look at Dota 2, it's now the 6th year. A lot of the things that were still in Dota, like in the last 4 years of like before Dota 2 came out, like go from like 2006 to 2010, it's a very similar game. Like the items are nowhere near what Dota 2 is now, because there's been some current patches for that.
There's a path for everything.
Yeah. and there are some new heroes for sure.
Well, I mean, if you think about the arc of Dota 1 to Dota 2, the biggest changes unilaterally have been taking emphasis off of individual skill and high-risk playmaking and putting emphasis onto teamwork and communication. So the 6.82 patch that changed the way that you get punished and your team gets punished for deaths was a huge blow to players like that classic Dendi Havos Demon style, very aggressive, right? The changes to Roshan Pit and Roshan Timer, so that it is not only less dire-centric, but also randomized, right? The changes to the runes, so that there needs to be more rune control. The changes to jungle creep, so that there's been increasingly more magic resistance and lower revenue from the jungle, lower revenue in the lanes, higher revenue from assists. Like, every major change that's happened in Dota in at least the last 3 or 4 years has really been geared to take power away from people who are just purely technically skilled and put power into teams that communicate well and execute well on a wider scale. And I think that's really where Demon has suffered in his past.
But instead of fighting against that way, he kind of just found another way to find that team-oriented play that accentuates his own play, right? Because that's why he's there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. That's what he's going for.
And
Whether
so
or not
that's the
they'll be
narrative,
successful.
right?
Yeah.
Are you doing a profile or something on him?
I just had one come out, and I have a interview that came out on the score as well with him, and he's an eloquent speaker. Like, he's a guy that's known for brashness, but he's really thoughtful.
Jimmy Ho is his name?
Yeah. Jimmy the Demon Ho.
Yeah,
Yeah,
been around for years.
Classic Jimmy. No, I would highly recommend that interview. I think that he really gets into some of the meat and potatoes of what the struggle is to be a pro gamer.
Very cool. Yeah, check that out. It's on the score with Gorgon. Flub, what do you think of North America? Do you have anything else to add?
I kind of feel like for some reason this year, I don't have the statistics on this or anything in a logical sense, but like when I'm watching these games, I feel like there's like something lost within our Dota compared to the other regions, and like it's always been that way for the longest time, but it's almost like something even more. Like I feel like we thrive on pub stars, and I feel like we thrive on the idea of like take our culture for instance. Like we're always like, I'm the best. Like no matter where you're gonna go, everyone's gonna like try to be the guy that's the best, and always like climbing on top of each other and using the other people to push off from that. It's just our mentality, and I feel like that's horrible in Dota. Like if you're being that big name and you're gonna try to like have that problem, then people are just gonna kill you over and over, and they're gonna punish that mentality. I think.
What do you think of like a DC or EG? I mean, I know you were in the air for most of today, but
I think they're stronger than I give them credit for, but I think that when I look at these teams, they miss an aspect of like their team fights that the other teams don't seem to have. Like there is one game during the qualifiers, or not the qualifiers, but during the matches last week, where Resolution was playing a Morphling, and he like got the racks while his team was fighting, and that was like super impressive play.
Yeah.
But once again, he was kind of doing that by himself. Like, yeah, he was talking to his team, and his team was distracting them, but he took the calculated risk, and he took the initiative in that situation.
And it paid off on the morph.
And it paid off, but
you could see through that cracks of them not making the decision together in a way. Or?
I could see it as a way that like I've seen him play morph since then, and people know how to deal with it now. Like they're always watching out for that strategy, and when they've been playing morph, it really hasn't had anywhere near the impact that he did on that game.
Well, he does have through the group stage, he had a 75% win rate with the hero,
Right.
and it's one of the most honor band heroes at this tournament. I mean, and also keep in mind, he'd only played it 3 times in professional Dota prior to the group stages.
Yeah.
So, like, I will say that people are getting a little bit better at handling his Morphling specifically, but, part of the whole mentality of a Morphling pick is that you have a hero. It's like getting Bulldog Nature's Prophet, right? The expectation is that if things start to go south, you have that person who can apply pressure. It's an insurance policy. Though I will agree with the concept or with the idea that the fact that he had to go and split push down that Rax showed that the team had not done something right as a squad, right? Like in a perfect world, you don't have to rat. You can just blow your opponents out of the water. The rat is a backup plan, and something did go wrong for that game.
And a risky one at that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing with Morphling, and I mean it's kind of one of the things that we were hitting on earlier is like having someone who has the ability to go down multiple different paths, not only whether it's like playing 1, 2, or 3, it's also like being able to rat with this guy, or being able to like hardcore farm on this guy, or it's generally when you that's why Morphling is one of the stronger picks. But if you, like you were saying, if you have to do something, if you're forced to do something in a game, and I kind of feel like the game, like people are almost like leading these teams into like almost getting comfortable with that, if that makes sense. Like they try to like force a team to like, oh, okay, we still have this backup plan, but they're almost like preparing for that backup plan. I've seen like with items and hero pickups on certain games. Now,
so you prepare for the main plan, and then you kind of prepare for their contingency plan in the meantime, kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, and I kind of think that like as the main stage moves forward, that there's going to be some really interesting plays of, I'm not going to say heroes. I think the items are going to be something that you really want to look out for. Picking up maybe a different item at a different moment on a hero to like maybe counteract a strategy that they have, and they're not going to reveal it right now because it's not. Well, they didn't reveal it in the group stage, but they can reveal it now to like beat their opponents.
So an example of what you're talking about would be in the LGD versus Secret game where Secret got knocked out. LGD ended up building 2 Lincoln Spheres on their team, and one of the reasons that they wasted the resources to do that is because they started to see that they were teetering out on that high ground, and they wanted to be able to send the Juggernaut up with their other core, with the Ember Spirit, and have both of them be safe.
Ember Spirit Marana, I think they built it on deck.
Yeah, so Marana would cast it on the Jug, cast the Lincolns onto the Jug, and let him go up to the high ground, and then the Ember Spirit had his own, and he would go up to the high ground. They wouldn't have built that. Probably they would not have built that if they thought.
Underpowered, dude. Sunderpowered.
Sunderpowered, yeah. It's just they had too much melee heroage, and they saw that they were running into that problem, and it's just like Flubb was saying, they started to counteract that ahead of time. If they had run into that problem too heavily before they built the second Lincolns, they lose that game. That would have been the 5th biggest comeback in Dota or in TI history. But because they got out ahead of it, and you could kind of see them building that, you could see that LGD were working ahead for the contingency plans that Secret had built into their draft. So I think that's a really insightful comment, Flubb.
Yeah. We got a lot of good stuff. We're falling asleep. I want to do something cheesy while I'm here and have the power of the room. And I feel like we kind of left it on a good note. So I want to take... What team do you think is gonna do the dirty here? Like, give me a...
Like win it all?
Yeah.
Gorgon, do you want to go first? Give me a few
I'm
seconds
Then we'll
to
just copy
collect my
you.
thoughts here.
The guy who studies it.
I'm going to preface this with the odds on any prediction in a tournament like this are
you were on our show last year, and I voted for Virtus Pro. I was like, oh yeah, it's in the bag. It went out like 16th or something.
So I would
like 8th.
say right now, I'm trying to find the balance between the team that I think has the best chance to win and has the best narrative to win together. And I think the best balance of that is eHome. I would be happiest to see eHome win. It would give us a lot of narratives through, and they are a very skilled team as well. So I think eHome is a good call.
Cool. Flubsta?
That's interesting. I think eHome is very strong. I think that, and one of the things that's so strong about them is coming from the wild card matches.
The wild cards.
It's so great to have that that secret strategy of like, okay, we're not preparing for eHome because they're not necessarily in this. Yeah. And I think that's definitely someone that I would go for. But like for some reason, I still want to say Wings. I feel like that they can still bring this home. Now, hopefully, they didn't get knocked out by when I'm talking here.
They won 2-1.
They're in the uppers. Yeah.
Against OG, and one of those the game that they lost, they ran Pudge Techies.
You just get booed out of the building, Flub. Get
Yeah.
out! People throw their trash. I was wrong.
Yeah, wrong immediately.
But for me, I'm just gonna say OG
Okay.
because I saw Miracle and he was like,
really,
had his
even-
hair back and like had his glasses on and was smoking, and I was like, damn, he's gonna win.
I mean, they
And like that's all the basis of my research.
They blew the lower bracket out of the water at Frankfurt, right? That's where
Yeah.
they come from. So it's not like a lower bracket run is out of the question for them.
That's their major MO, kind of. I mean, except for Manila, I think.
Yeah, recently they've been mostly upper bracket kings, but I had to fight against saying OG because they're the favorites. You don't want to pick the favorites in your prediction.
I had to do it.
Right?
I'm
But
cheap.
somebody has to do it, so I'm glad somebody on the panel did.
Cheap Seattle.
And
whore.
I think that there is a definite possibility for them, but like, dude, I don't know. There's like, I feel like they're gonna trip up, and it sounds like that they already did.
Maybe.
So
Maybe it was all calculated by Fly. You know.
If it was, that is some
You'd never expect
crazy
a Fly
next
as a
level.
spider, right? He's in your web. What do I
That's some
do?
crazy next level stuff because
And
you
then
just
he
put
just
yourself
snags
in
your
a
ass
bad
somehow.
position.
But okay, I am going to do something cheesy because, like I said, I have the mic. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna say
I'm Wazoo, and I am .p, and sometimes I try hard.
And then I'll pass it to Gorgon, and you'll say,
I'm Gorgon. I'm .p, and sometimes I try hard.
yeah, there you go.
I'm Flub. I'm .p, and sometimes I try hard.
Listen to that guy.
This is true.
What? I'm sorry. I wasn't.
Who let this guy?
I wasn't paying attention. What am I supposed to say?
My name's Roland, and
My name.
alcoholic.
Are we gonna start on that list? Like that's only one of my ailments.
for your intervention.
The meth is the bigger problem.
The entire podcast was for this intervention. No, say, I am Roland, I'm .p, and sometimes I try hard.
I'm Roland. I'm .p, and sometimes I yell really loud at Denny because he's fucking dumb.
Hi, I'm Mercinity, and sometimes I try hard. Not tonight, because I'm tired.
I'm Jekyll, I'm .p, and sometimes I try hard.
I'm Gushi, I'm .p, and I do memes.
I'm Perry and Flax, I try hard, I'm .p.
I'm Frozen, I'm .p, and I always try hard.
I'm Hatakemara, I .p, and I avoid trying hard because it's bad for your health.
I'm Namazu, I'm .p, and I'm a professional feeder.
Must have learned from Roland. The only person in the Rocky Mountain area that teaches that. So guys, thank you for joining us here in Seattle, Washington, with all of the people that have supported and made us possible. I'm going to let Gorgon go ahead. Give us your plugs, my friend. Tell us where we can reach you and read your work.
You can find me at The Wonder Cow on Twitter, where I post almost everything that I write, and all my player interviews and pieces from the International are going to be exclusive on the Score Esports app and website. I've got a good thing on DC for American teams, and that's all about Resolution and their new coach, Lumdum, and I've got several other interviews as well that I had mentioned already.
Want to thank you sincerely for coming on. Like, you didn't have to come out. It's late. Big work day for all of us. So thank you so much.
It's really
and I
my
can actually
pleasure.
look you dead in the eye and say, thank you.
It won't come over the podcast. That was a sexy glare.
Yeah, it was sexy. That'll just be the thumbnail for the podcast. Sexy eyes. Yeah, there you go. Flub, where can people reach you, my friend?
Well, as always, you guys can find me at Flub Dota. And then in-houses on Wednesdays. We're going to probably continue them on Wednesdays, right?
We are. It's going to be down at, well, what do you think? Hey, come here. Come here. She didn't say the thing. She didn't say the goddamn thing. Do you want to ride home? There you go. What do you do? You're not peeing. What do you do? As what hero? As Necrophos. Okay. That's as close as we're going to get it to a mic. But, Flub, sorry for cutting you off there.
No, it's all good.
I just knew I'd been duped. So I was a little pissed.
But, yeah, you can catch me on Wednesdays. We usually have our in-houses then.
We will be resuming them eventually. I mean, it's not going to be a long break or anything. It's
Soon,
just, we're gonna,
TM.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So
less soon than Valve time, hopefully, but
yeah, most definitely. But you can find any of these people that we're talking here today, and we generally are a good group of people, and we want you all to come down and hang out with us and play some Dota.
Thank you for that. Guys, if you're thinking about getting involved, join the Discord. We have plenty of community outreach members and stuff. So just figure out a way. You could find us on www.defenseofthepatients.com. You can look at in-house information, Discord information, anything you want to find. Check out our YouTube channel at .ptv1.
No. Just
At .ptv1. Yeah. Amateurs. And also check us out on Twitch at .ptv. Thank you guys for joining us.
Hey, okay, enough of this. Goosh, I want to stand up for you because you haven't yet, okay?
The Reddit?
What about our Reddit?
Hey, I was getting there.
We're the meme lord memes.
Okay.
And post our episodes before we even do, dude.
That is true.
Where's the credit?
Gushi maintains our subreddit, and that is Defense of the Patients, our Defense of the Patients. And check that
Round
out.
of applause for Gucci.
Yeah, second one.
What a
He
man.
deserves all of them.
What a meme.
But guys, thanks for joining us in Seattle, Washington for TI6. There'll be more .p content coming at you this week. Remember, guys, stay hard and stay classy.